Hello and welcome to our analysis of iCAT06. iCAT6 is the sixth mock in the All India level full-length test series of Testfunda. So these mocks, you would have taken iCAT1 to iCAT5 so far and seen various mocks of varying difficulty levels. Now when you come to iCAT6, we first need to identify what kind of mock it was in terms of its difficulty level. As you know, we classify our questions, section and mocks in terms of levels 1 that is easy, 2 moderate and 3 difficult. iCAT6 had an average difficulty level of 1.89, which means that it can be classified between easy to moderate. Broadly, it would be tending towards moderate. What is the number of good attempts? I will come to this at the end of this analysis. So, as you know, CAT has 3 sections in the order verbal, DILR and quant. Let me start with the verbal section first. The verbal section of this mock was fairly easy. It had an average difficulty of 1.76, which means that it was a borderline easy to moderate section. Broadly, you will find the verbal section of the actual CAT to be marginally tougher than this. However, when we say this, let us look at the kind of questions that we had in this mock and then analyze it. So, the RC sets first. As usual, there were 5 RC sets in this mock, 4 of which were doable, which actually led to this entire section becoming easy. The first set on anthropology was by far the most difficult set and this should have been avoided. Whereas the next 3 sets, the one on Big Bang Theory, the one on evolution and the one on police force in India were relatively easy to moderate. So these could have been attempted. The last set on microcredit was fairly easy. Broadly, these 4 sets were what you should have looked for in this mock and avoided the one on anthropology. You could have easily got 14 to 15 attempts out of these 4 sets itself. Having looked at RC, let's look at the non-RC questions, that is the numerical entry or theta questions. They are the typical chapters from which they were covered: jumbled sentences, contextual odd man out, paragraph summary, paragraph completion. Which of them were easy? Jumbled sentences, yes, easy to moderate. Contextual odd man out were moderate, while the 2 paragraph based question types, para summary and para completion, were difficult. So you should have focused more on the 3 questions of jumbled sentences and 1 or 2 of contextual odd man out. On the whole, looking at RC and these numerical entry questions together, you could have directly attempted 18 to 19 questions in this section easily. So here I have pegged the number of good attempts at 19 for verbal. Now let's look at the historically most difficult section of CAT as well as the mock, that is DILR. The average difficulty level here was 2.06, which means marginally tougher than moderate. In CAT, you can expect that the difficulty level of this section will be approximately 10% greater than what you saw now. So if you found this to be easy, then it's okay, you will probably get something tougher than this. If you found this tough, then you are in trouble because CAT DILR will be marginally tougher than this particular mock. We typically recommend an attempt of 4 to 5 sets in the exam. So I always try and identify which are the 4 best sets that you need to solve. What were the best sets for this exam? So you had one on 4 types of warehouse corporations, boomers, etc. This was definitely doable. Then there was one set on the T20 tournament. Again, this should have been attempted. There was a set of arrangement of books in 2 rows. This should have been attempted. And finally, there was this set of average scores in 4 subjects. So these were the sets where if you put in time and solve the set, you could have got all the answers. So here you could have attempted 4 questions in all 4 sets, straight away giving you 16 attempts. Apart from this, there are always 1 or 2 sets where you will probably need time or you need specialized knowledge, but you will be able to attempt them. So here we have identified 3 such sets that could either have been an alternative or a potential 5th set. One was on Venn diagrams based on 4 vegetables. The other was on 8 whole numbers A to H, which was actually doable but would have taken a lot of time, and one was on Christmas presents. Again, based on linear equations, would have taken a little bit of time. You could have solved any one out of these. So broadly, these 5 sets is what you should have targeted. Good attempts in this section again would have been close to 19. You could potentially have touched 20, considering that it was among the easiest of the DI sections you would have seen in the mocks so far. Having looked at an easy DI, let's now move to the last section, which is maths or QA. The average difficulty level of this section for this mock was 1.85. Typically, this is slightly more difficult than what you will see in CAT. So if you see, for this mock, we have made DI slightly easier than CAT and maths slightly tougher than CAT. Which again, in maths, there are always 9, 10 or 12, somewhere around 10 to 12 questions which are sitters or easy questions. The key is to identify these questions. Which were the questions here? If you see here, the first half of the paper had a lot of easy questions. Question number 67, 71, 73, 74, 75, 79 and 78. So if you see the first 15, you straight away had 7 to 8 questions which were relatively easy. So had you scanned the first half of the paper, you would have found a lot of easy questions. Then in the second half, there was again a chunk of easy questions between 85 and 90, and then there was a chunk of easy questions between 95 and 100. So there were these 3 chunks that you should have focused on. Had you done that, you would have easily got 14 attempts only from these easy questions. Then attempting 3 or 4 moderate to tough questions here and there would not have been so difficult. On the whole, you could have attempted 18 to 19 questions in this section. If I were to summarize this mock, this was a moderately difficult mock, I would say slightly less than moderate, with a relatively easy verbal section, a relatively easy, moderate to difficult or moderate DILR section, and a moderate math section, but slightly tougher than expected.